You scaled the agency to over 80 employees and then exited for like a multi-million pound deal.
That really started 2013 as a hobby, then 2016 is when the business that grew. The company had got so large, something I started on my mobile phone, but then it was where did the risk come in? I spoke to my wife, my family, I made the financial plans. Essentially, I said, look, I'm going to give this a year because if I never try, I'll never know. The definition of entrepreneur is those who set up a business and take the risk to make, but you don't have to necessarily be making money to be an entrepreneur.
At some point, you guys lost over 70% of income overnight.
We would very strategically give ourselves 3 months, but if at the end of this 3 months we've not got monetization back and we're still 70% down on our income, then we're going to have to start looking at cost cutting. And then we woke up one day to, you are now eligible to monetize your pages. We took off at that point because we were earning more than when it had gone off. Move out of the mindset of, oh, get me millions of views. It's more, no, can you get my content on social media to reach my correct sale? People are fantastic, but what I learn as well is when it's your business, it's not their business. Sometimes you've got to realize everybody is in it for themselves.
What's up, my smart friend? Before you jump straight into this episode, there are 3 boxes I'd love you to check while you watch. First things first, please make sure to hit the subscribe or the follow button down below, because the more we grow, the bigger guests we can approach on this platform and the more value we can bring to you here on the podcast. Second, a lot of friends always reach out to me and say something like, hey, Arrey, I really did enjoy this particular segment of this episode. What I want you to do, if you get to a point like that, pick up your phone and send this to a friend and say, hey, check this out between 10 to 15 minutes. There's something very important I'd love you to see. Number 3, please make sure to check out the links in the description for very helpful resources. You're going to find the link to join the Smart Club, which is my private mentorship club for friends who want to learn and master a high-income digital marketing skill. Whether your goal is to build your personal brand, become a freelancer, or get a job in digital marketing, the Smart Club is going to be the right place for you. Also, you're going to find the link to join our 21,000 Smart Friends on email, where you're going to receive an email from me once every week. Plus, down below, you're also going to see links to connect with the guest. So please make sure you tick those 3 boxes and enjoy the rest of this episode.
I'm super excited to talk to you because I think one of the things that struck me from your journey was first the part where the company you exited. But most importantly, when I looked it up, I was just like, you scaled the agency to over 80 employees and then exited for like a multi-million pound deal. But more interestingly, at the time when you were leaving, the agency had over 18 billion views across different channels and 30 million followers across as well.
Yes.
That was something that really struck me, and I was like, oh, now I need to have this conversation. But before we talk a bit about that, how would you introduce yourself to the audience? Who is Ryan T. Williams?
Ryan T. Williams, my history, like I say, it's an entrepreneur in building a social media agency, scaling it. So from that really started 2013 as a hobby, then 2016 is when the business that grew became formalized. So I went through the whole social media boom era, so to speak. So all through the Twitter, it started on Twitter, then onto Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and then TikTok as the later years went on. So I've been part of what I say, like the golden era of social media, the big growth years where all these companies, the likes of Stephen Bartlett's Social Chain, your Lad Bibles, companies like that have made huge corporations out of online media, essentially. So yeah, and I took money from an investor. We'll get into it. I took money from an investment. So the company, Call Me Group, still exists, and I stepped away to become my own person. So I'm on my own journey now to be known as Ryan T. Williams.
Right. So I want us to segue a bit back. When do you remember starting your first business, and what was that like for you? I mean, your introduction into the business and entrepreneurial world.
So I left school at the age of 18, and up until 22, 23, I worked in IT. I got an IT apprenticeship, so I was working in a tech job. 2013 was when like Twitter was really on what is like its big growth phase. I'm a massive football fan, so some of your audience might know pages like Slow Sports News, Deluded Brendan. I created those pages over a period of from 2013 to about kind of 2015, 2016, still working in my IT job. And so I had these, Deluded Brendan was 350,000, Slow Sports News was 90,000 followers. And I had a few, so I had about 500,000 followers on my personal network. And when you talk about the entrepreneurial side, I set myself up as just a small business at the time because I was being approached by betting companies, by other pages to help them grow, and retweeting was popular back then. So if a big account retweeted you, got more followers. So I was getting £300-400 a month, sometimes peaks of £1,000 a month. And I was like, I spoke to a few people. They said, well, you kind of need to declare this because it's going to be an extra 15, 20K income over the year. You can't make that disappear. So I set myself up as a business. And that was my first real dip into what being an entrepreneur was. Like, I'd left sixth form college with a D in business studies and never thought I'd ever look back at business and never thought business isn't for me. I'm not interested, and end up becoming an entrepreneur without realizing. Because like the definition of entrepreneur is those who set up a business and take the risk to make. Well, you don't have to necessarily be making money to be an entrepreneur. It's having that, setting that company up and making it. So I was still doing my IT job for 3 or 4 years, but this was what I call my side hustle. But it was getting busier and busier. The Deluded Brendan account won an award at a ceremony, so suddenly my face was revealed to the world because I used to run it in secret. And then when I'm getting this award and celebrities were tweeting it, like ex-footballers, and so then I met 2 other people at these events who, between us, we had 2 million Twitter followers. And it was in the time when other large businesses like your lad Bibles, like Stephen Bartlett's Social Chain, they were doing the same. And we said, look, between us, we've got 2 million followers. Like, we can have some of this market. You know, what's stopping us? And what held us back a little bit was we were purely in the football field. So all our accounts combined were in the sport field. And we're like, that's okay, but it's limiting, you know. So we made an account called It's Gone Viral, which then allowed us to post anything and everything, really. You know, I always like the funny viral clips, kids falling over, pets, you name it, drunk people, very British humour at the time, which then stretched obviously into like US and as the page grew. And that was a term, It's Gone Viral. That was a very popular term at the time. It was new. It was, oh, have you seen Dave? He's gone viral because of what he did in Tesco, or like, have you seen Michael? He's gone viral because he fell over on Facebook. So we thought, It's Gone Viral. Well, let's just post viral clips. So we posted viral clips where we could. We posted the GIFs, the memes, you know, the old school white bar writing clips and things like that. And then we interjected that with news articles, with the Google adverts, clickbait, essentially. You know, you won't believe what this top 10 footballer car is, and it's a Lamborghini number 1. You have to click through 10 pages and that. So again, this was still, I was helping them out because my 2 other business partners, they were doing like this world full time, whereas I was still working in my IT job. And I was doing well in the IT job. I was 23, 24. I was a senior within a public sector university company, so I was doing well. But social media was where I was getting excited, where the buzz was, the parodies, the everything. And then with my 2 other business partners, I said, look, I can't do both anymore. And I really want to do the social media. But financially, I was getting paid more from IT at that point. But then it was, where did the risk come in? I spoke to my wife, my family. I had a young child at this point. I had a mortgage. How do you take that risk? So it was a risk, but I always call it a calculated risk, because we made the plans, we made the financial plans. I gave myself a year. Essentially, I said, look, I'm going to give this a year, because if I never try, I'll never know. You know, it was one of those moments. So we looked at personal finance and work for everything was like a year, essentially. Then after a year, I go back to working in IT, sign out of all the Twitter accounts. I tried, whatever. And the rest, they say, was kind of history. So handed in my notice to my work at the back end of 2015 into 2016. And then that was it. Then I was full-time entrepreneur for It's Gone Viral, because we were called It's Gone Viral Limited. We had all our Twitter pages. Then we had this It's Gone Viral page, which it went from 1 million followers very quickly to 2 million. We were just on that again. We'll talk about, we got on Twitter when it was going up like that. Then we got on Facebook when it was going up like that. So that's when the real journey started then, 2016 into beyond.
So when you were operating It's Gone Viral, I'm curious, what does the business model around that look like? How does that work?
So initially it was 3 of us that were co-founders. So the overheads weren't massive. They were to pay, but because my 2 other business partners, they had their other business interests, they were financially okay. But whereas, because I'd quit my IT job, I had to make this work. I had to make this. I didn't have a backup. So working, and the business model was the I mentioned before, the websites. So you would write an article on some breaking news or something that had happened in television or in the world, structure it, and you sign up as a Google ad affiliate, so that it would populate your pop-up ads and things like that. And that was okay because we had a reach of like a million, 2 million page, so we could be getting like 500, 600, 700 clicks an article. It was okay. It was like paying £300-400, but so that was what was paying the bills initially whilst we looked at growth. And it got to a point where I was like, well, I'm not the best writer in the world. And it was before the days of ChatGPT. I wish I had that back then. I wish I had the AI bot to churn out some articles for me. But so I kind of exhausted the things I wrote, and to get the better Google clicks and to get the better reach, you had to structure your articles a little bit better. So we hired someone in who could write for us. But that allowed me to, where my strengths were lying was in creating the accounts. I was driving the ideas, I was creating the content, I was doing the videos, the memes, the GIFs. I had that knack of knowing what worked on social media. The monetization model was the Google ads for quite some time. And then we had a little bit of a tiny agency model where people could see what we were doing. So smaller businesses were saying to us, well, can you do that for our pages? And it was like, yeah. So we had a couple of the traditional retainer, clients on that. And then that was beavering away. That let us scale a little bit. So we had a couple of video editors and we had a social media manager. I at that point was still kind of looking after the accountancy and the HR, with my different hats on. The business partners, obviously, with helping out with things like that. And then where the real big boom moment came from was we were growing all these pages. So at this point, it's gone viral. We thought, right, it's gone viral is great, but can we do a pet page? Can we do a lifestyle page? Can we do a gaming page? So we built all them. So the network it had about 5 million followers when we built everything. A big eureka moment happened where we saw on these other large Facebook partners, like some American ones, some large ones, adverts were popping up on their videos, and we were like, they're getting a bit like YouTube and things like that, and we thought, we've got this massive Facebook estate getting these millions of views. How can we do that? So we applied to Facebook, and they said, oh, well, it's coming, we're beta testing it on other pages, but you keep doing what you're doing, and eventually you'll get the adverts. So we cracked on then, like carried on growing the pages. And then we woke up one day to, you are now eligible to monetize your pages. And you can imagine having an estate of like 5 million followers and all these videos going out. That at that point just allowed us to, we took off at that point, because we were paying like graduates from university coming in on 21, 22,000, but they were editing 4 or 5 videos a day that were earning us $6,000-7,000. So we knew if we had 10 video editors who were making 100 videos, it was going to earn us X if they go viral. So you can imagine how quickly we kind of scaled up at that point. So we had a small 1, 2, 3 man office at that point, and then when these videos are, we moved into the centre of Manchester, and that was again a massive pivotal point for our business model, because people who know the UK, like Manchester is one of the biggest cities. It's very diverse, it's metropolitan, it's very talented. So we were on the outskirts, and it was hard to get staff to travel out to the outskirts. But as soon as we were in the centre, we had the job applications, the skill set of our staff went through the roof. And it just, again, allowed us to grow and grow. And that's kind of 2019 into 2020, which leads, could talk about afterwards, how the pandemic then came about. So
I'm just watching you share the story, because I was checking today. We have the it's gone viral pages. They have over 11 million on Facebook, 5 million on TikTok, 3 million on Instagram, and it's still growing.
Yeah.
And you talked about, I heard you share a story somewhere. You talked about at some point you guys lost over 70% of income overnight.
So that was when the pandemic came. So it was into 2020, and news all broke in Britain that our Prime Minister wanted to send everyone home. It was like we had about 30, 40 members of staff at that point in our central Manchester office. I'd all had these big all-in-one iMac computers, so we had to send them all home in taxis with their computers to go to the house. It was about a couple of weeks into the pandemic where I mentioned Facebook sent us a message was saying, you're now eligible to monetize your pages. They sent the opposite message that said, you are no longer eligible to monetize your pages. And what they did is they sent a message saying your content's not original enough. And bearing in mind, we were in a viral space. So when one clip was viral, other people would post it. And what they claimed they were trying to clamp down on was having the same video on 20 different news feeds, And they had a point, but it was coincided with the pandemic, and we kind of knew, because the way Facebook work is they can pay a partner like us to put their ads on the videos, but they need the partner at the other end who's boosting their videos, who's boosting their products. So in the pandemic, the first thing these people who were paying for Facebook ads did was stop the Facebook ads. So we think Facebook got in a space where they couldn't then pay out to the partners like us. So rather than say that,
they cut it down.
They made it that we had to be more original. So we had emergency meetings and we read through what they meant by this limited originality. And it was basically, if you were going to do a video, the points were make it editorial, make it have some facts on it, make it have some news on it, make it have a commentator on it, have someone giving their opinion on it. We followed all these guidelines, and what that actually meant was we hired a freelance presenter, essentially. And it really annoyed the audience because they'd be watching this viral video and then they had this girl pop up at the end and go, "What did you think about that video? Did you know 1 in 10 people, whatever?" And people are like, "What's this about? Why are they doing this?" And it was basically to make the videos original, to have our own footage on it. And after about 2 or 3 months, we got the advertisements back, and we'd made Facebook's changes that they wanted, but also the world had settled down a little bit. The markets had settled down. So it kind of went hand in hand. But what had happened is, because when that crisis happened and we had 70%, we had cash reserves. So we sat down at the board and said, we can carry on as we are probably for 3 months. But rather than furlough everyone there and then and panic, we was like, right, well, let's keep going. Let's try and get monetization back. We were very strategically give ourselves 3 months, and it was like, right, we'll keep assessing it week by week, day by day. But if at the end of this 3 months we've not got monetization back and we're still 70% down on our income, then we're going to have to start looking at cost cutting. So, but because we were always we'd reinvested everything, but we always give ourselves a savings business pot for a rainy day. No one knew the pandemic was coming, but everyone always called. People always say, "Oh, spend all your money." Well, no, always keep it, and it coming really valuable. So because we stayed as is, if you ignore the money element, the pages were still getting all the views, the new followers, the new engagement. So the pages were as healthy as they'd been. And during the pandemic, everybody was on social media. Nobody. That's why gaming went through the roof, because everyone was watching Facebook gamers, Twitch gamers. People were all filming stuff in the gardens. There was paramedics filming themselves dancing. Everybody went on social media, and it's when TikTok exploded through the roof with the launch. When we came out of this 3 months, our pages were bigger. When the monetization came back on, we were earning more than when it had gone off. That allowed us to, again, just carry on as is and fill back our cash reserves and claw back what we'd lost over that 3 months. But being the remote and how well remote working was working for our members of staff, we then allowed us to hire people from London, people from Europe, from wherever, from New York, because we suddenly realised not everybody needs to be UK, Manchester in the office all the time. So it worked well in a way. And then when we started to unlock from the pandemic, I think we'd grown to about 60, 70 members of staff. So there was about 20, 30 people I'd never met. And going back into the office for that first time and meeting all these new people was a really strange thing. And it was almost part of one of the reasons that I'd started to feel I was ready to leave, because the company had got so large. Something I started on my mobile phone in my bedroom, so to speak, to meeting a couple of co-founders, to having over 80 members of staff. We got the company valued, and it was like, well, if someone wants to give me that for my 32%, then I'll take it. This kind of thing. So, yeah.
Right. So I'm curious, when you are building a business, I know that for a lot of people, the idea is just to, as an entrepreneur, you just want to build a business that's going to feed the family and make some money for yourself. Yeah. But if you want to think about a bigger picture, which I don't know if you thought about it from the initial start, what does it look like when you're building a business, which even if you exit, someone can take over? What do those systems look like for you?
We went through a lot of it because we had building company culture was quite, it was a tougher journey than you realize, because you get to a point where, especially with a social media or a digital company, you're in this space that's fresh. Your staff are paid to go on social media. Your staff are paid to edit videos. They're paid to film funny videos. We were in a space where they could go to McDonald's and buy 20 Big Macs and make a video out of them. You know, it was it is a very unique world. It's a job people don't understand. And we always say we were hiring jobs that never existed 5 years before that. You know, if you can imagine saying to someone, you'll be paid £20,000 a year to edit viral videos. If you'd have said that to someone 20 years ago, what do you mean? So because we hired a lot of graduates, they were young, they were coming out 23, 24. But then because the business grew so quick, these people were then managers at the age of 25 and they were hiring new people. So then trying to put structure in place to this culture where we had a table tennis table, we had bean bags, we had beer Friday, we had pizza, and then all of a sudden start hiring in more senior managers who were in the 30s, in the 40s. And so navigating through that culture was tough, but it was something that had to happen because whether you like it or not, you need management in place. You need and because the main thing is, especially with the fast growing businesses, someone sat there assessing what's working, what isn't, the appraisals, and then we owe it to the staff as well to make sure that they've got a career in this. They don't want to still be in 5 years' time still sat editing video. They want to know. So then you put in things like training, you put in management training. But then that's when it starts, the people who've been there originally start thinking, this is all getting a little bit corporate, it's getting a little bit boring, this is no longer the fun company. But all companies that we knew in that space had to go through that. But it's key for, as you say, the long-term future, because especially as owners as well, you want to get to a point where you can take a week off, you can take 10 days off, you can take a morning off. I struggled with that at times. We even had all that in place, and I was on holiday and I was still checking my emails. It was a really funny story where my wife asked me to leave my phone at home because we had the managers in place. My other co-founders were there to look after the business. And if I'd have been on my phone, that's all I would have been on the sunbed. So I left my phone at home, but then I snuck in the room and got the kids' iPads and logged into my emails, just because I couldn't relax or switch off. But that was almost part of why we grew so hard, because of the relentlessness. And that's when I'm talking to young entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs, I just say the resiliency and the flexibility and being ready is so key. Yeah. Because especially with this new world, I watch things like The Apprentice and Dragon's Den, and when they really grill people on the business plan, I always say, if we'd have gone off our business plan, we wouldn't have achieved half we achieved. If we'd have looked at a business plan, about 2 weeks later, it'd have been out the window, because you've got to be so agile, and especially in the digital world.
What's up, my smart friend? Before you jump straight into this episode, there are 3 boxes I'd love you to check while you watch. First things first, please make sure to hit the subscribe or the follow button down below, because the more we grow, the bigger guests we can approach on this platform and the more value we can bring to you here on the podcast. Second, a lot of friends always reach out to me and say something like, hey, Arrey, I really did enjoy this particular segment of this episode. What I want you to do, if you get to a point like that, pick up your phone and send this to a friend and say, hey, check this out between 10 to 15 minutes. Something very important I'd love you to see. Number 3, please make sure to check out the links in the description for very helpful resources. You're going to find the link to join the Smart Club, which is my private mentorship club for friends who want to learn and master a high-income digital marketing skill. Whether your goal is to build your personal brand, become a freelancer, or get a job in digital marketing, the Smart Club is going to be the right place for you. Also, you're going to find the link to join our 21,000 Smart Friends on email, where you're going to receive an email from me once every week. Plus, down below, you're also going to see links to connect with the guest. So please make sure you tick those 3 boxes and enjoy the rest of this episode.
When you're coming back to the original question of what it looks like to build a company, it is the structure and the culture is really key. I don't want a lazy culture where nothing gets done, but you do want a relaxed culture. It's finding that fine line between what works and what doesn't, because people always use Google as the example, and I was talking about Social Chain had a slide in their office and things like that. It's where were the extremes? How do you keep staff happy but still keep output? Yeah. So it's that. And then with regards to selling, it was something that only came apparent in the last year, because it was just especially during the pandemic. You don't ever think you've got a business you can sell in a year, but it was just when people say, "Oh, did you have this plan from the day you started it?" And I'm honest with people. I say no. It's ultimate people's end game to make money.
You didn't start the business with the idea, I'm going to sell it at some point.
No, it was a hobby turned business turn, and it all happened so quick. I never actually sat down. We never had a business advisor or a business strategist who said, start building this to think about this exit. It never happened. It was just, And then when we got the valuation of what we were worth I think we did it on a 10 times EBITDA. And then we got the offer. It was jaw-dropping, and I'm not a gambler, so it was I'll take it.
I'm curious, when you are building a business like that, and I can tell you for sure, so right now I have a small team of just about 4 that works with me, and they help me with stuff like on the podcast, the video editor, and the rest. But I know very well that just going from one team member to two team to three to four, you need to start thinking, oh, okay, now I'm in charge of 4 people. I need to wake up very early in the morning. I need to, hey, delegate them. I need to check in. You also have to be very careful not to micromanage. But the tendency is the thing that when I speak to a lot of people, sometimes they build the opinion that they would rather prefer a business that grows slower than a business that grows faster. I'm curious did that shape your decision, or did that shape your thought around building the businesses? And what would you prefer, a business that goes slower or a business that goes faster?
It's a weird one for me to say, having exited for millions. But one of the reasons I did exit was because I was no longer actively in the day-to-day, if that makes sense. Like, the happiest times I had with the business were when we had the smaller office out of town. It was 10 minutes from my house. I used to make a lot of the videos. I'd be part of the videos. I'd be part of the idea process. I'd be creating the new pages. I'd be working with 3 or 4 members of staff, as you say. It came with its stresses, as you mentioned there. Like, you have to be there for them. You have to manage them. You have to, if they're going through things, you have to be flexible. And then I went through a bit of a loop of, I'm a really nice guy. Those people get to know me. So at times that borderline, people can take advantage of that a little bit. And then it's hard to then bring that back. Like, oh no, actually, no, I really want that done. But those were when I look back on my journey, because I'm in the process of writing my book about it as well. The times, so I've been going through a lot of this and fishing it out. And the times when we were smaller is when I was like, I'd say day-to-day happier, it was one of the drivers for when I sold, because I was no longer like happy day-to-day. Like, I was still taking a salary from the business, but I didn't feel like I wasn't providing much. My days were filled with like boardroom meetings, strategy meetings, appraisals. Can I come into this disciplinary and things like that? And it wasn't why I did the business in the first place. I did the business to have fun. So yeah, it was one of the drivers of.
How much did you sell for? Is that on public records anyway?
No, I'm not allowed to officially say because it was a private deal, but I can say it was 7 figures. So that's how I politically say it. So yeah.
So that's millions of pounds.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to ask you, talk to me. Can anyone actually, I watched the presentation where you talked about unlocking the power of social media. Talk to me about a case study, probably a time where maybe you helped a client to get X and X results and get viral. What does that process look like for you?
Yeah, so it's an interesting mind shift, because this was when I first exited. It was something that I didn't initially do this coaching or this consultancy, because I thought people are just going to be approaching me and saying, how do I get 1 million views? How do I get 10 million? I thought I was in a very much like, it's gone viral was a boom. I can't imagine now, other than single creators on TikTok, I don't know there's many people who can create millions of brands. Just the way social media is and the platforms are where they're at. But it's talking to more and more people what it is with helping small businesses with their social media. It's not to get thousands of views. It's not to get millions of views. It's to get the correct views to their ideal client. Because I've been working with an architect who has been making face-to-camera videos, who I've helped him do, and I've taught him the methods. And he's gained 2 or 3 new leads for his business, for his consultancy. That's perfect for what his business is. So it's been quite a nice little model to move out of the mindset of, oh, get me millions of views. It's more, no, can you get my content on social media to reach my correct sales? Because ultimately, what they want more sales and they want more leads. And our business is quite unique. You don't come across many people who come and say, build me a page to make money off adverts. It's build me a page to sell my service or to sell my product, or, so it's all about gearing them and working out their target market and who uses what platform and where, and what their client avatar looks like, what they want to see. There's lots of tools out there to find out what people are searching for certain industries. Well, make videos on what people want to know if that's your area of expertise.
Right. So what you're saying is, if I am building a business to, let's say I have a coaching platform and I'm trying to build a business to drive more sales to my coaching offers. Yeah. The idea is I will go around my coaching offer. I make many more videos around that thing, and not necessarily worrying about getting millions of views, but just getting the right people to watch that video where I put out a lot of value. And then within it, there's like a call to action. So the funnel is kind of free content, the call to action then.
Yeah, because it's not saying that what I work with clients as well is that we have the mixture of like the entertainment, education, emotion pieces. So you can do your entertaining videos in there that may well go viral, but they're not necessarily advertising your service. They're just showing you as, because people buy off people. So I do encourage people to, if they want to do a funny video, if they've done a whatever, put it on your social media. It doesn't have to be, because people approach me and say, oh, I've got my business page and I've got my personal page. And I say, well, first things, would you be happy to mix them both? Well, yeah, I don't mind that. So, because some people are like, no, I purely want business, but I feel like we're in a space now where if you're paying for a coach, you want to see that that coach has a real life. You want to see that they go to gigs, to football games, to sport games, to wherever, to the theatre with the girlfriend, with the wife, the boyfriend, wife. So I'm a big believer in mixing the content of, and I do it myself on my Instagram. I have my videos that talk about things like this, the business exit, the sale, my coaching offering and stuff.
Yeah, I watched one of them where you talked about the experience from the gym. And I was just
Well, then I post stuff about like my daughters, my kids, and stuff like that. Yeah, I mix it up, and yeah, I think that's it. Walking out the gym, just telling a story, has got more views than me talking about my coach. But it just helps people say, oh yeah, Ryan's a real person. He's not just sat there all day long going, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. You know what I mean?
What are some of the tips you would advise when approaching social media? Maybe let's take Facebook, for example, as a case study. What are some of the tips you advise anyone who is trying to get the right views or trying to get the right and trying to grow their audience on Facebook?
Yeah, so I think first thing, make sure the audience that you're targeting use Facebook, because it could be that you're targeting 18 to 20-year-old students or something, and they're notoriously not necessarily on Facebook that much anymore. So make sure straight away it fits your audience, and yeah, it's just posting at the right time from your audience. It sounds daft, but look at the analytics of where your audience is from. You know, if you've got a highly US page, you can post early morning in the UK to catch that. But if you're trying to catch a UK audience, and it's more as well, if you're for example got a product that's for stay-at-home parents, for example, post that during the day, because you know they're likely to be scrolling on Facebook during the day. If you're targeting school kids for a new football or something, post it after school, post it at weekends. Do you know? So try and work out. It's the old client avatar thing of put yourself in your customer's shoes. When are they likely to be using social media? What platform are they likely to be using? What do they want to see? Let's say if you're selling, I don't know, if you're selling a football, who do you want to buy that football? You know, so yeah, it's really putting yourself, flip it on its head, in your client's shoes or your ideal customer's shoes and what you want them to see. So, and then I said, and again, with the edits, I always try and put subtitles on things, because like 80% of people watch videos muted. So if you're doing a bit that's got audio or explanatory dialogue, use the CapCut's got a brilliant built-in function now to do your subtitling. TikTok can do it automatically. You know, on the Apple Store, there's an app called Captions, which is unbelievable. So it's so easy to do now. These are the things I go through with clients, because I remember like years ago in the business when we first started subtitling videos, our video editors had to type everything into a CSV, import it into Adobe Premiere. Imagine how long that took. And then some AI technology come in that transcribed it for them. But then they still had to then put it on the video. So where AI's come now is frightening. And again, when you talk about getting stuff right for your copy, don't be afraid to use ChatGPT as well, like, or any to, because people are a bit scared of it, that it can out of the box make you a long gobbledygook description and you can tell it's not you. But there's lots of different videos up there to upskill yourself, and just to make sure that what you're typing out it looks good. You know, it's something because I said my English and grammar's not the greatest. It never has been from school, but now I use ChatGPT. It's great. I can, because it knows me now. It knows my voice. It can write me bios. It can do this. So yeah.
What do you think about using scheduling platforms for social media? Will you think are they good to go, or would you just post directly to the social media account?
It's a tough one, this, because you speak to some people who are adamant that third-party tools like Metricool and things like that damage the reach. Never been any proof of that. It's more, but then I use things like to rule that out completely, if you use Instagram scheduling tool, for example, it's brilliant. You can use Business Suite, you know, Meta, because if you're using their inbuilt tools, there's not going to be any damage to reach at all. So that, or just use, like I said, the draft function. You can draft all your stuff up and then post manually if you want to do that. But yeah, if you're in a space where you've got lots and lots and lots of things to schedule, then yeah, your things like your Metricals, your other scheduling apps probably are good. And if you are doing with them, just assess. I always, again, I'm a big advocate for testing things and analysing things and looking back. If you maybe send a few out on a scheduling app and then you few out manually at the same times, maybe just check if there's any difference in reach, any difference in engagement.
In one of your presentations, you made a mention and you said video is king, and I'm curious as to how you would approach videos in any process of growing a business or a brand.
Yeah, I say that because, like I said, I'm a big believer in people buy from people. So if you're selling a product, you want your face on that camera. Like I said, the tools now to edit, to schedule are so much easier. And if you're selling a product as well, rather than just a picture of it or a text base about it, film that product. You know, like I can't move on TikTok at the moment for buying a pan. You know, like a pan for the kitchen. It's a bloke with a pan and he's making his TikTok shop. And then again, that's just a video that helps you see what the pan is rather than your old school advertising. So pictures and text updates still have their space. But if you think, I always say, could this be made into a video? Because videos do get more engagement and they do get more reach. Right.
Somewhere along the line, I'm going to ask you, let me ask you right now, are social media agencies dead? If you were to, that's a yes or no question, but if you were to start one again, what would you do differently, especially with the recent changes in the algorithms and the way that these platforms work?
Yeah, it's something I've toyed with because I'm working as myself now and I am getting approached by lots of different people asking for the done for you service, so as in your traditional agency. And initially I've been saying no because it's just me. But the more and more inquiries I still get, I think the appetite's still massively there. I could potentially build a team again from my contacts that I have. And what I would do differently on the agency side, I think they've got to get in the space of being more agile and being more open communication, because what some agencies can get businesses can get in a bit of a loop of is, here's your 6 pieces of content. The business says, okay, thanks. The agency says, okay, thanks. And they never think, well, that could be better, or could you do it this way? Or if they do want a change, it takes 3 days to come back. You know, like I think there's got to be a little bit more agile, because as you say, with the changing algorithms, with the changing trends, if I was an agency for someone, I'd want to be able to make them reactionary content quicker. Mm-hmm. And I know some agencies do this well, but when people get gripes with agencies, it is because of the other side of the slowness of, and some agencies charge per change. Like if you want 3 headings changed, that's 2 changes and you have to pay. Yeah. But then I get why that happens, because then you've got to bill for your time and your hours. Otherwise they could just ask for 100 changes and you're suddenly down on your manpower. So back to your original question without sounding like a politician. No, I don't believe agencies are dead at all. I just think must be more agile for the customer. And because I was talking to an agency owner last week and he was saying, when my clients get to about 9, 10, 11 months, they start wanting to look elsewhere and they say the content's getting stagnant, it's getting stale. So he said, what do you advise? I said, just book some time and have another refresher strategy day with them, and just because what you planned for them 9 months ago isn't going to be that relevant now. So just go through the process again and just almost treat them like a new client. And then they were worried about, like, well, what if the client drops off? Well, I said, well, make sure you're still having some kind of sales process to replace that client. You know, don't wait till their contract expires and then be left without the work. So.
Yeah, I think that part of what is responsible for that as well, in my experience, also running an agency at some point, I think part of that is because we get too comfortable. You get the client, and then you're like now too comfortable, and we already have a replicable blueprint. So we know once we take this, we just drop it here. It gives us this, and this is the template we use for this client, and then you toss it and you just don't look at it again. So I think what you're saying is very important, because sometimes you might get just get too comfortable. You're not innovating on the work that you're doing. Then part of it as well is just even the team you have, everybody's just doing the same thing, like just the same thing and just tossing it over to the client.
Yeah.
And they get tired. They're like, why are you giving me the same thing every single time?
Yeah, it's true. Like I said, I have done some consultancy where they do have an agency in place, and I can just go in and advise, or I could even give them some ideas to, there's the space for, it's the creativity. That is the hardest bit, but think outside the box, I always say.
Having worked and having related with some of the biggest brands on social media and yourself being in the field and seeing what works, what would you say is some of the biggest mistakes that you see people do on social media? Be it from the agency perspective or be it from just people trying to build their brands and go viral on social media with their products.
One thing that used to happen years ago was we were in the space of breaking news. And I do remember when there was some of the horrible terrorist attacks happened in the UK, there was a couple of agencies who were doing the breaking news and they were putting in names and headlines before it was officially confirmed. And there was one company who did that, and they printed someone's name, and within like half an hour, a lawyer had rang and said, that person you've put on that article that's had millions of views, that's my client, they're in jail right now, so they can't have performed this terrorist attack. So it's liable. So there was a real space of trying to be first can really, it can actually destroy your brand. Yeah, and the big thing we learned as well was like copywriting as well, like the race to get some content. Sometimes make sure it's not owned by someone, and with regards to now, because I think again it's a fine line. Some customer service brands do it well, like they have a laugh and a joke, like your Ryanair's, your Paddy Powers on Twitter. But don't veer off into being rude, and seem like you don't care about your customer, because you'll soon build kind of a bad reputation. So fine line between thinking outside the box but not doing too much that's wild, but finding that niche. And like that's a tip of, I always say, you look at your competitors. I'm not saying copy your competitors, but look at what they're doing and either look at the bad things they're doing, but also look at the good things that they're doing and think, I can do that better. I can do that better with our twist or with this twist. So
Right. Talk to me. You at the time when you were exiting It's Gone Viral, you guys had a team, you said over 70, 80 people. What would you say were some of the biggest team building strategies you implemented at that time, which were very successful, and how you would advise anyone to apply that moving forward, be it in their business or with their teammates?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it before. I said, we tried to, our younger members of staff who were coming through, we tried to, where possible, give them a career path. So we avoided bringing in senior managers externally where we could. We wanted to provide our staff with the training if they were interested, because not everyone's interested in management. Funnily enough, when I was in an IT, I did a year-long management course, came away from that and said, I don't want to be a manager, and then end up running a big social media agency because... And I used to sympathise with the people in the company who were, I love my job, but I don't want to manage a team. And I always tried to work out more senior technical roles rather than team building roles. And it's, again, this is where the fine line comes in, but it's listening to what they want from a job or what they want from a role without giving them everything, because you can get into a stage where they get everything, they get a pay rise, they get everything, they get cushy, but it's not good for the business. But it's listening. It wasn't ever being, this is the job, this is what you do. Because when we first hired people and we were growing, there was people coming in on one job, and like within like 3-4 months, by the time the probation had ended, they were doing a different job, because they were coming in and we were looking at them and we were going, wow, you're actually really good at this. Try this. And they started to enjoy that, and then we'd replace what we actually brought them in for. So it's having an agile workforce as well, and really looking at where the strengths lie and where their desires lie, because I always say a happy employee is always 100% more efficient than an unhappy one. And someone who's just doing the 9-5 and going home, if they enjoy what they do, they're going to do it better.
Right. Now, I want to ask you, Ryan, with all the experience that you've had, one of the things you said you're very passionate about is helping people, building people, helping them to realize speed from their financial goals, their business goals. Talk to me about how that plays with your current life right now and how you're helping people to build their brands and just grow their businesses.
Yeah. So it's coming in kind of 3 parts at the moment. I've got one that's my public speaking, that's going into schools and businesses and motivating them with my story. I'm a real big believer of, because I'm quite humble and I'm still to my roots, and I want people to think if he can do it, so can I. You know, that angle, it's a real, I don't go in rooms and shout at people telling them to be a better self. I go in, tell them what I've achieved, how I've achieved it, and they leave thinking, yeah, it is doable. You know, it's, you don't need a golden spoon in your mouth. You don't need £1 million investment from the off to build a business. It can be done with the right ethos, the right ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And then on like the more delivery front, like I'm doing social media consultancy and coaching mixed in with business, really. And that's a kind of what I mentioned before of those people who want to, it's a mixture of those who want to make more content themselves rather than like farm it out, and those who just want me to come in and look at if what they're doing is correct or any advice I can give, any improvements. And like I say, a lot of it is for a smaller business owner who happily make the content themselves. They just don't know how. And now with the space of these apps, every phone now on the planet is better than any camera was 10 years ago. So you can make good quality content with the apps now very, very quickly. And it even comes to a space where you go through with them and they go, oh yeah, I don't really have time to do all that maybe. So it helps them clarify what they actually need from their social media output, which is great. Then on the young people, the mentoring side, I'm doing a couple of different mentoring roles. So mentoring one lad down in London who's rolling out a sports app to people during five-a-side games, basketball games, hockey games. He's doing that in the local community in London. So I'm providing my mentoring and my advice for him, how to secure some funding for the app to make it better. Recently just finished one that was a sixth form student at my local school. And I like to work with younger people to arm them with what the real world's like. And it's something I'm going to and want to do more of, going into schools and just giving assembly talks, giving classroom talks from any age, really. I've done it as young as 8, 9, 10-year-olds at primary school. I always do a great talk about how Fortnite's one of the biggest businesses in the world, and it's a free game. How does that work? And then when you break into that, they buy the guns, the skins, the emotes, the levels, they're spending Minecraft as well. Like, they're spending their mum and dad's money or their pocket money, and they don't realise that's a business. So rather than going in and telling them about Dave's Bakery, you go in and tell them about something they use every day, and their eyes light up. And the teachers always say to me at the end, you really speak to them on a level that they know. And I was just like, again, it's just the way I approach things, just very simplified in the best possible way.
Right. When you are building, and I've realized this with my journey, when you are building a business, some of the biggest challenges you face, I've had a lot of people talk about it, is sometimes you finish building a business, but the other aspects of your life are not intact, right? For entrepreneurs, is you're going to finish building the business, maybe by the time you're done, you don't have your health intact. By the time you're done, you don't have your eyes intact. By the time you're done, there's something happened. There's a deficiency or there's something. Talk to me about how you manage that with your own life and how you are keeping yourself intact with all of that.
It's a huge example. We're going to bring it up here. During the business, I probably put on about 3 or 4 stone. So I don't know if you can see, that was me. Oh,
yeah. Clear.
Oh, there we go. That's coming clear now. Yeah. So that was during the that was the comparison that I did.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, and again, that first picture I just showed you was when my brother got married in 2018, and that was what I always call, it was just the whole full on of running a business. But where we were in social media was food videos went through a phase of, when you talk about food porn, essentially, so we'd go and buy we did one year. It was we bought 100 McNuggets and we put them all on a Christmas tree, and it was the McNugget tree. But there was only 3 or 4 of us in the office. There was 100 chicken nuggets there. We ate them, and we got into a space because you could expense it as well because it was making a video for the page. So we did things like the KFC gravy fountain, where we got a chocolate fountain and put gravy in, held the chicken under. We had the Greg's platter, which is like a bakery. And it was like an afternoon tea dish, but it had sausage roll, steak bake and things like that. But So we just, every single day we were making all these food videos. And I've got a big appetite, me. I'm up and down, like, so I can eat everything. And I didn't couple it with any kind of gym work. So like I say, my weight flew up, and it wasn't till selling the business kind of 2020 when I managed to find the time to get back to the gym and look after myself a little bit. And yeah, it's not been straightforward with that. Like I pulled my back and ended up in hospital and stuff like that. But again, my back was probably shot to pieces for not doing anything for 3 or 4 years. So yeah, it's looking after yourself is a real key one, and I tried to tell it to people. Now I probably could have found time to look after myself. I can't blame that I worked 24 hours a day on the business. So I probably could have said, you know what, I'm going to shut my laptop and I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to have this next call on the phone, maybe, you know, like, I'll just go for a pat. But when you're involved in a business, you can't think of anything else. And that's why I said I've got 2 children and a wife. So between the family and the business, I just forgot to look after myself. Yeah.
Talk to me about how you're managing family life and running the business.
There's a few quite interesting things in there without giving too much away right now. But there's a lot where me and my wife, we went through some quite tough times. Like, she gave up a job to let me do this business, and we had a young baby. And there was at times where I just was so all in. I hadn't seen anyone. You know, I was working too much, and I was in a bad mood. I was constantly working all night, and went through some really tough times because my wife was with me when I was working in IT. Then she was with me when I built the business, and well, thank God we're still together today. But it wasn't easy. It's like all people see from the outside is this growing this business, selling, woohoo. But there's so much more went on behind doors. And it was a hard juggle. And as I mentioned, like going on holiday, my 2 children were playing in the swimming pool, and I'm nipping in the room, checking my emails on my iPad. So there was a real time where I couldn't switch off. And don't get me wrong, it still happens now. I'm not perfect. You know, I'll still be checked. But it's a tough one, because why I started the business was to stop the 9-5 grind and stop going on the tram into Manchester every day.
Time for the people you love and provide for them. But now you become a slave to that thing that it deprives you of the time you have to spend with the very people you started a business for.
Yeah, and that's it. Because before my first daughter was born, before I started the business, I lost my mum to bowel cancer as well. So it was a big driver of life's very short. So, you know, you've got to make most of it while you can, while everyone's young. So, but it doesn't stop you falling into that trap. And yeah, but it's not easy, is what I'll say.
Yeah. If you were to go back from that situation, is there something you would have done differently on how you approached it?
I always say no with this question, because I am where I am today with success.
Because of the energy you put in.
Yeah. So as whilst it was tough, it obviously worked. I think it's maybe it's like serendipity or different moments of, if I hadn't quite done that, would it have led to that? So I'm a big believer in you don't change the past. Like, because people say, do you regret selling? And I say no. And I say good luck to like the partners who stay behind. They may will get quadruple what I get, but they'll have put the years in, they'll have put the hours in, they'll have put the risk into, because they could have cashed out there and then, but they didn't. I did. So I don't know, I'd never change anything. And good luck to them. I do hope that I hope they get 10 times what I got, because they'll deserve it. But I'm a big believer in not changing the past. If there was ever major mistakes, you'd say you do that differently. But in the general, no, because it's got me to where I am today. So I obviously did something right.
I'm curious. This one is outside of business. Anyway, before I ask you the outside of business question, I was going to ask you, is there any biggest lessons you have learned on the journey that you might want to share to anyone who is watching this? Be it from you building yourself, be it from business lessons, be it from something they should have in mind as they embark on the journey of building their brand and trying to build their business?
Yeah, it comes down to it's the problems I suffered from being a really nice guy and trying to give everyone everything. Sometimes you've got to realize everybody is in it for themselves. Like,
what do you mean? But what when you say being a nice guy, what do you mean?
So like when someone, like early doors growing the business, someone say, can I have a day off? Yeah. Or I'm ill today, that's okay. And I used to just like let things go, you know, rather than go, well, that's a day's loss, or, you know, like you'll have to use a holiday, or, you know, just because I'm a really nice, I don't like the awkward conversations, I don't like confrontation. So I always found myself just saying, yeah. But as the business grew, that didn't really set a precedent. But people are fantastic, but what I learn as well is when it's your business, it's not their business. So there was at times where I'd be messaging at 8 o'clock at night saying, can anyone sort this? And no one would reply. And I'd be like, oh, thanks. And someone said to me once in an appraisal, look, it's your business. You'll be doing that at 8, 9 o'clock at night. But someone who's just an employee, they might help you out here and there as a favour. But if they're busy or doing something else, they're not going to drop everything. You know, it's because it's not their business. So that was quite an interesting one to realise your business is your business. And you have to give people motivation to return the favour and things like that. And yeah, it's again, it's a tough one to negotiate, but I don't want that to sound like I'm bitter. I love people. I'm a people person, but it can go too far sometimes. You have to make sure you look after yourself if you're in that guise. And then on the flip of that, if you're constantly barking orders and shouting at people and angry, and I know bosses, people hated like that, so that you just got to find that fine line, and it isn't easy. But yeah, just look after yourself first, then everything else will flow.
Right. Ryan, outside of business, you have 2 children, Lexi and Mia.
Yes.
And I was wondering, what's one lesson you'd really bent on instilling in them as they grow up and as they start to, just the pride of you being a father and something you want to instill into them so they grow up with it?
Yeah, first one is hard work. Like we're in a position where now financially got the exit, and we treat them to nice things, but we still drill down that they have to work for it. Like when it comes to if they want to go to university, or when they go to university, I want them to know what they want from that. You know, I just don't want them to do nothing for 3 or 4 years. If they want to work, or if they want to launch a business or whatever, as long as there's a clear path, I want them to know that they're not going to be sat on mummy daddy's money kind of thing. I'm a big firm believer in like hard work. And also as well, when it comes to careers, I say this to a lot of young people, is do something you enjoy, because you work for a long time.
Yeah.
If you're creative, if you're in the arts, you're not going to go and be an accountant if numbers bore you. You want to go and do something creative. If you're a people person, you want to do something that revolves around nursing, caring, things like that. So just do something you enjoy. And don't be afraid to kind of take risks and come outside your comfort zone. It's ambition and to be driven. But yeah, but it's just like say along them lines of do something you enjoy and work hard for it.
Sure. Totally agree. I think it's very important because you're going to be spending a huge part of your life on that thing anyway. So you want to enjoy the process. And the other thing I would say to people is sometimes you would have to do things that you do not necessarily enjoy, but it is your role, it's your job to find something interesting about it, because if that pays the bills anyway. Yeah. I don't think when I was growing up, I studied journalism. Yeah. I did. So a bit of my story, I studied journalism and then at some point I end up starting a blogging website, a news website, and I'm doing all these things. It works out a bit well for me. But for me to scale, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should start running Facebook ads. Maybe I should start doing this. I have no clue. I don't like Facebook ads. But I have to fall in love with the process, because at least that's what pays your bill for the moment. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I love Facebook ads because that pays the bills for me. So I would also say to people is sometimes you find yourself somewhere where even if you don't like it, is, hey, how do I find something interesting about what I'm doing and then make it my own for the while I'm building it. I want to thank you, Ryan, for sharing. But the last question would always ask every guest on the podcast is, when all is said and done, how do you want to be remembered as Ryan T. Williams?
I guess the down-to-earth Mancunian guy who achieved his dreams and wants to help others.
That's short, brief, straight to the point. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ryan. I do appreciate you for your time and thank you for sharing from your world of experience. I think that someone's going to find this helpful. How can people find you?
So I'm Ryan T. Williams on Instagram, on LinkedIn as well. And Twitter, I'm a little bit on there, but it's more going on about football. So yeah, my more businessy focused or life focused things are Instagram and LinkedIn.
Definitely. And we're going to put a couple of links down. So for those who want to check out Ryan, the links are going to be down in the show notes.
On YouTube as well. There's quite a few speaking clips on there as well. So yeah.
Right. Okay. We'll link that in the description.
If you just enjoyed this episode, the chances are that you're going to enjoy other amazing episodes that we've recorded, so you can check that out somewhere around this video. Before you go, please make sure you check our 3 boxes. First things first, please make sure to hit the subscribe or the follow button down below, because the more we grow, the bigger guests we can approach on this platform and the more value we can bring to you here on the podcast. Second, a lot of friends always reach out to me and say something like, "Hey Arrey, I really did enjoy this particular segment of this episode." Pick up your phone and send this to a friend and say, "Hey, check this out, between 10 to 15 minutes, there's something very important I'd love you to see." Number 3, please make sure to check out the links in the description for very helpful resources. You're going to find the link to join the Smart Club, which is my private mentorship club for friends who want to learn and master a high-income digital marketing skill. Whether your goal is to build your personal brand, become a freelancer, or get a job in digital marketing, the Smart Club is going to be the right place for you. So before you go, please make sure to tick those 3 boxes. Like I always say, my friends, cheers to many more years of shamelessly living and crazily excelling in passion and purpose, and I'll speak to you in the next episode.